So hello and welcome everyone to our July virtual Agile Boston event. And we're really excited to have Heidi Araya here to present. Just a few things before we start. This is our monthly event. It goes from 12 noon to 1 p.m. We will end on time. We will not be having an August virtual event off for the summer, and we'll be kicking back in September with our next virtual event in the fourth Wednesday of September. We'll have another virtual event at the fourth Wednesday of October. And then on November 26th, the Tuesday before U.S. Thanksgiving, we will have Give Thanks for Scrum. We will be selling tickets pretty soon for Give Thanks for Scrum, so look for some early bird specials there. About our speaker, Heidi, I'm really excited about this talk. So one of the things that we've been focusing on this year in Agile Boston is the changing Agile environment. Is the environment that's been changing in the Agile industry over the last 12 to 24 months. A lot of people are losing their jobs, Scrum Masters, product owners, coaches, and they're asking the question, what's changing? Is Agile dying? What's going on? So we've been trying to really focus our monthly talks on this. And I think this talk is why I'm excited about this talk, is because Heidi's going to really address, how has the industry changed? And how do we think about our jobs, and how do companies think about Agile jobs? And then she's going to present 6 skills that we need to develop and have in order to adapt to the changing job market. So I think if you're out there and you're a little concerned about your job, or maybe you're looking for a job, this is a great presentation for you. And Heidi is an expert in this area. So we're super excited to have her. And Heidi, I will hand it over to you. And thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. I always love being here at Agile Boston. So, of course, my name's Heidi Araya, and I think it's important to know I've been an integral part of the Agile community since about 2011. So I worked my way from being an analyst, product owner, Scrum Master, Agile transformation coach, leading Agile transformations. I've spent half of my career helping companies with process improvement, better ways of working, adapting to change, and so on. But I can't help companies and people adapt without personal ability to adapt. So yeah, this is going to be a very personal story about my journey. And I think coming from the Agile world and seeing the things that I had to go through to get where I'm at today might really resonate with you folks. So one last thing before we dive in. Every image here is AI generated except for one, and I'll let you guess which one that is. All right. So I had to learn to live and adapt in a rapidly changing world. In fact, I graduated university in December 1991 with a degree in Russian and linguistics after studying aerospace engineering, and I was actually dreaming of a career building bridges between Soviets and Americans. And on December 25th, 1991, guess what happened? The Soviet Union fell, the hammer and sickle flag lowered for the last time over the Kremlin, and I realized, oh my gosh, there's going to be a flood of Russian-speaking people to the US. I had to rethink my career before I even started. I didn't have my diploma yet, and my career was already out of date. But this was just one of the many wrinkles that I lived through navigating computers, the internet, the dot-com crash, recessions, 9/11. I was a researcher, a technical writer, an Agile coach, and of course, like I said, leading Agile transformations. And so I had to rely on my wits to survive and remain employed. So I gained a radar for seeing and hearing when things were going to go wrong inside organizations. So I was able to remain employed for 30 years with barely a break, despite 5 layoffs and leaving other jobs voluntarily. So without revealing the whole story along the way, I hope by the end of this talk you'll understand why I'm uniquely qualified to speak about evolving and thriving in an uncertain job market and an exponentially uncertain world, whether or not you're an Agilist, whatever job you have, and whether you have one or not. And also why I'm passionate about helping others on this journey. I do like AI enablement. So I transitioned my career from Agilist to helping people with their AI transformations, consulting, and mostly focus on solopreneurs, small businesses. And of course, I have individuals calling me up for AI coaching. I took an applied data science program at MIT when I saw the world changing, and I have my own consulting firm, which finally came out to light as my full-time gig, Bright Logic. I'm a director of the board at iStream Management Consortium, and I raise butterflies in Florida. We're going to cover the current job market, the AI impact and opportunities. I'm going to be asking you to whip out your cell phones and scan some QR codes along the way, and how to succeed in a technology-driven world, and some skills for an era of exponential change. But first, if you wouldn't mind just scanning the QR code and letting me know, how are you feeling about AI? How are folks feeling?
What kind of AI? There are many different kinds of AI, and feelings are very different about them.
It is true. Mostly I'm thinking about generative AI, but thanks for the question. AI has been around for a long time, right?
So we're talking about generating new content based on statistical computational engine results, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I think that's what yeah. Most people think of AI today as this new AI that's generative AI. Thanks, Talia.
Well, I'm not sure most people do.
Yeah, I think it heavily depends on what you're hearing and like what market you're in. So in general, though, but the people. So I'm going to wait a few seconds for more people to vote. Looks like a lot of people are feeling hopeful. That's good. Any last voters? No one's. All right. We got 12 folks. I'm going to move on. Thank you. Well, it's good to know most folks are feeling hopeful. All right. Since November of last year, I have been studying various reports, information sources on the current job market in tech, outside tech. So also for anyone here who might be watching this or listening, I'm mostly focusing on the US in this area. The economy is doing pretty well. We have almost 3 years straight of jobs being added to the economy. That means we are continuing to grow. The job market isn't bad. It's just terrible in tech, and it has been for quite a while now. So the unemployment rate is at about 4.1% now. It's increased slightly, which is the highest level since October 2021. But almost 1 in 4 people who are currently unemployed have been so for about 7 months. And so that's kind of a scary statistic. So what is going on? Yes, layoffs are still happening in tech. The layoffs might be on a par with those in 2022. So I go and I pull the statistics all the time on layoffs to FYI and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so people are still getting laid off, and this is impacting us, even though if you look on the right-hand side, job growth in the US is stronger than expected in the entire first half of 2024, except for you see the little minus sign that's missed expectations. So we've far surpassed expectations for job growth. So we can't say that the job market's not growing or the job market's bad or so many people unemployed. It's showing stable, slowish growth. It's been bad though for a while in tech. We've experienced in tech lower than average unemployment for as long as I can remember, and a job in tech was always a sure bet. So that these layoffs are impacting people in tech disproportionately. So we, in our little ecosystem, it feels terrible. And not to mention, these are some of the best paying jobs out there. So while a friend of mine was thinking about ultrasound technician, which is a pretty good paying job, but it's very different than what we have today, in tech. And although, again, plumbers are in short supply, few people may want to move from tech to plumbing. And a lot of those jobs, of course, do pay much less. And so these are the things that we have to consider. So the jobs that are actually being added are a lot in healthcare, in government, in construction, in the trades, and social assistance. So you can see where the job growth is. There might be some jobs in tech inside a little niche in healthcare. So that's why we're feeling some disproportionate pain. So
I apologize, but is that real? Is that really everybody's experience in the US? I see tech firms hiring very broadly right now. I see firms that use technology, business firms that use technology, hiring broadly for their IT departments.
Yeah. So in general, a lot of companies have been layoffs, and they're conducting layoffs, and people are very fearful.
Yeah, but layoffs have always been in place. It's not new. They were around in 91 and 2001, 2011, and now. So when we look at data for tech jobs, how are we making a connection that this is actually affecting technologists or agile specialists? How do you make a connection that layoffs is what's affecting us as opposed to other factors?
Yeah, I guess I'm not clear what your question. How can we know that it's layoffs impacting Agilists and folks in technology?
Well,
Is that what you're asking?
I empathize with your point that in particular for agile folks, the job market isn't great. What I'm questioning is whether or not that's because of the layoffs or because of multiple other factors.
I see. Well, I'm going to be talking. That's exactly what I'm going to be talking about next. So yeah, I won't get through this whole presentation if we continue to pause. So there will be plenty of time for questions at the end. Thank you, Atalia. So let's talk about why tech companies are doing layoffs. So we're talking about COVID overhiring. That's been one thing that everybody's blaming, but of course we're back to pre-COVID levels finally. So no more excuses. Maybe that was a 2022 excuse. Interest rates have gone up. So that's impacting a lot of businesses who would get loans and then hire people. So for years, it was almost like a 0% interest rate. And you could then say leverage and hire a lot more folks. Well, the next reason is tax law changes happened. So at the end of 2022, there was something called Section 174, where we used to be able to expense all of the costs related to research and development, which of course a lot of that is software development is research and development. So now those costs have to be capitalized and amortized over 5 years. So that means all of a sudden the tax burden for tech companies is much, much higher from now than it was for many, many years. And of course, software is bigger. And the fact is that companies weren't prepared for this because everybody thought the law was going to be rolled back. So there was this behavior going on. Well, fourth is that the market forces reward the behavior of layoffs through higher stock prices. So a lot of the companies doing layoffs now aren't actually struggling financially, but they see that when they do layoffs, their stock goes up. So there is that. And that's a sad fact too. Peer pressure. So imagine all the stock and media darlings laying off thousands, and now I'm a CEO in a company. If I don't lay off stock, I'm going to look stupid. So their board is probably pressuring because the stock is only going to increase. And of course, they get huge rewards if the stock goes up because a lot of their compensation is in stock. So, and lastly, this restructuring, I believe that companies are actually shoring up their cash reserves to prepare for uncertainty, pay bigger tax bills. And of course, I could say some companies have stated that they are taking this opportunity to invest in AI, whether it's direct costs related to their AI models or whether they want to hire staff with AI. However, very few companies are saying that they're directly laying off staff due to AI. Sometimes they might use it as a scapegoat, but my point here is that AI is not to the point in most industries where wholesale replacement of people is warranted. And you can see with all the other factors here, AI is not the major factor. That doesn't maybe make us feel any better that the layoffs are happening, but we can't sit here and blame AI. So I'm going to give you some advice if you are job hunting. Remember what I said about those industries that are hiring. So if you are in the US, those industries are healthcare, education, government, manufacturing, construction. So you may want to look for a job in one of those niches. Look for jobs in smaller firms because there's going to be less competition. Everybody wants to have a big brand name there. And lastly, you may look for on-site and hybrid roles in your city. So if you go do some in-person networking, you might find that there are some on-site and hybrid roles, and maybe get into an area that needs a lot of your help, even if it's one you weren't initially thinking of. So I know some folks have moved into healthcare and manufacturing specifically and taking their Agile skill set there and are very happy doing that. So the world has changed dramatically in just a couple of years. And particularly, of course, due to generative AI. AI has been around since the 1950s, but all of a sudden it became easily accessible for more people in this, we can idea generation, coding, content creation, customer service, marketing, sales. There are actually AI voice calls that go out now to do sales and make leads and inbound leads to companies. So 1 year ago, I was actually working as an enterprise transformation consultant after being laid off from my role as director of transformation at a large tech company, which was sold. And I knew that job was on the downswing. I was desperate to find my new path. I had been for a few years now because I could see it coming. People weren't wanting to hire Agilists the same quantities as they were before. A lot of people entering the job market now have never worked in a waterfall world. And in fact, companies think they've transformed already. So I was looking for this next step for me. And thankfully, AI came on the scene and gave me a direction that I could take with some intentionality, because once I saw how it could help me in my job, I got excited. I felt like I could do anything. So when I was laid off again, I decided to take that leap. And without knowing much, I said, I'm going to take a data science program at MIT and start building chatbots. So that's what I did. So I'm just curious to hear from folks in the audience. Will you please take out your cell phones or go to slido.com and type in 407, 403, and just tell me how often you're leveraging generative AI in your daily life.
Isn't everybody leveraging it every second of every day or rather, when any type of type a message isn't generative AI come into place?
No, not really. A lot of people aren't actually using, so they might be writing all their emails.
Oh,
by-
so predictive spell check is not a generative AI?
I guess you could call it generative AI. Believe it or not, some people have those turned off. Really, I'm talking about the Chat GPTs, the Geminis, the Claudes, intentionally using like DALL-E, Midjourney, and things like that. So if you're not intentionally using it, I'm not counting this. So yes, focus on the intentional use.
Yeah, Heidi, this is Angela McAllister out here. And I think that's such an interesting question, because there are, little tools that have been built into solutions, like you're mentioning, the spell check and the stemming and all that stuff's been there for 20 years, right? So it's probably not something that we notice. And I think that's a really interesting question on things like, are we seeking and intentionally using AI to cover work that we might not have otherwise? And one of the areas where I see a quick uptick is things like Otter, things that track and take notes and help sort content and take a little bit of the drudgery out of some of the leadership tasks that we have.
Yeah.
So I think this is just a really interesting question about how are we intentional and how do we absorb it? Super
That's
interesting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So I love this focus and thank you for the comments, because it's like the unintentional, we are mired in AI all the time and we don't know. But yeah, if we're using it intentionally, even the filters, right? All of this camera setup that I have with the virtual camera, that's all AI too. But it's more like, content generation. So I love it. Thank you. So in this AI impact analysis on jobs from the World Economic Forum report from 2023, and there's also PwC report coming out, but it will be a huge impact on our day-to-day tasks. So by the end of this year, I can say that our jobs are going to change even more and more drastically. We don't know what's going to come. People say, this is the worst AI we will ever use. There are a lot of speculative articles out there, but not all of them say that our jobs will be replaced or that jobs will be reduced. In fact, a lot of them are saying AI is going to contribute almost 16 trillion to the global economy by 2030. So I do think that people have ways of figuring out what's coming next. So I'll continue to talk about that. But I do think that AI has a potential to improve our economy. And in fact, we are now discovering that all those investments that companies are making in AI, if they're spending millions, billions, trillions, that they're not receiving the return on the investment that they are thinking. This is a long-term investment. So only a quarter of AI exposed tasks could be cost effective to automate in the next 10 years, according to Darren Asimoglu, who's a professor at MIT. However, we have to be prepared, right? Change is coming. So this is my message to you on how to be prepared. So let's talk about why AI skills are so powerful. To me, it's like the widespread democratization of knowledge, akin to when books were invented, maybe, but at a much larger scale. So there are vast bodies of knowledge available for free that used to take years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to obtain and maintain, and you can leverage it also. Because I like Star Trek, it's like having any question I have answered by Data, who's sitting next to me at a push of a button. Like, this is what I had envisioned the internet might be like back in the 90s, where I just type in a thing and I get the right answer back. It's like having like you can tap into the hive mind again if you like Star Trek, like the Borg. So to me, it's not a threat, it's an opportunity. So for me, I don't think I would have been successful completing my data science program at MIT if it hadn't been for generative AI. I remember the program manager asking me, Heidi, why this thing? Like, why you? It's so different than anything else you have been doing. And I told her, if not now, then when? Now is the time. So I created a custom GPT in Chat GPT. I asked it questions on, data scientists. How do I think like a data scientist? I got to clean data. I've got to think about this machine learning algorithms. I have to think about what an eigenvector is and all these things that I wasn't expecting. So I used it every day. There were days I hit the limits on that, and I shared it with my colleagues as well in my class. So if you too can acquire knowledge, if you have this kind of focus, right? I was very focused on completing that program. It was easier, like things easier. So AI in this way, like, can make things easier. So going back to how this is going to impact you. Layoffs have been happening in tech and ongoing, but while job postings are declining in tech in general, the AI category specifically is seeing huge growth. So a huge increase in machine learning specialists, data scientists, which is a very hard career, by the way, takes many years, data analytics and statistics, and of course, AI consultants, which I count myself among them now. Companies are going to need AI consultants to help them adopt AI, so that it is a huge change, but also a huge opportunity. And that's what I'm going to talk about, these emerging jobs in AI. Some of them are known, right? Those people who are doing the technical development and innovation, the nuts and bolts, the data scientists, engineers, system integrators, cloud technologists, and cybersecurity, anyone, you name it. But there are also those people who have to support those people. So the strategy and application of AI, think a product manager has to think, how are we going to integrate AI in our product that doesn't seem like it's just bolted on? It makes sense. How are we going to integrate it into our culture? Thinking, how are we going to educate people on that? Of course, there are going to be governance and ethics professionals involved as well, and lots of research and advocacy, public policy. But I think most people may fall in this, where you're kind of AI adjacent. You can learn a lot about AI without getting into the technical details. You should understand the technical details. So there is room for both you and AI in the workforce. I think because a lot of people are coming in without a lot of knowledge, it's going to be important for people to know how AI works and the underpinnings behind it. And that's what helped me with my data science program. I had to learn the algorithms and understand that I had to make trade-off decisions when I was cleaning the data, and a model might particularly fit here. Why did I choose that particular model? So I think in your own organization, be conversant in the details and understand those trade-offs and decisions made, or some questions that you can go back and educate yourself on the ethics and privacy considerations. And one just example I want to bring up is AI apparently determined in a small study that your facial structure could reveal whether you're a conservative or a liberal. So you could imagine if companies began to market and sell information to various groups to divide us further in some way, just a risk that we all have when we don't know what the machine learning model is going to come up with, because it's not always transparent. So educate yourself on how it works and those privacy considerations along the way.
Why would we imagine this in the future, where this has been happening for 15 years?
Yep. Well,
This has happened for 15 years during elections already. AI has been used.
Absolutely. Yep. But now it's coming, now it's coming to the forefront, where it's just taking over all the media, right? Now it's coming to the cusp where, because of generative AI, it's bringing it on the scene, and that's what's going to help our jobs transform. So it's going to be out of the more like technical use and more into, oh my gosh, many of our jobs will transform, right? Almost a quarter of our jobs are going to be transformed in a few short years. Many of us will be switching jobs in industries, but I want to say that 60% of the jobs have been created since 1940. So if you were a taxi cab driver in New York City in the early 1900s, and you were worried about your job going away, and we were saying, well, without those, what is going to fill the gap? Of course, we can't go back in time, right? We wouldn't say we want to go back to horses, but the fact is that the jobs that are going to go away, the new jobs that will come up, we just don't even know what those are. Then there are going to be new needs, new occupations that no one has thought of. We are a very people that think of a lot of things. And so I'm going to use this diagram to show you this tricked out Camaro, because there's a huge industry in custom wheels, paint jobs, conversions, and even a multi-billion-dollar industry in racing cars. And no one could have really predicted that in the early 1900s. So I just think of the kind of skills that humans have to adapt, right? AI skills are actually becoming a job requirement now. So in a Microsoft and LinkedIn study that came out just about a month ago, more people are requiring AI skills in their job. And if you are looking for a job, almost 3/4 are managers are going to prefer a less experienced person with AI skills over a more experienced person without. So this is a call to action for you if you're not upskilling. I'm going to show you how to do that. The number one predictor of an AI power user is how frequently they experiment with AI. Train yourself to have an AI first mindset and you'll be creating your own future. And if you tried it a year ago and were not impressed, please do try again. A lot has changed and you need practice. So practice, there are a lot of people sharing a lot of great content on LinkedIn. You can see how they do it. Of course, other channels in social media and YouTube. If you want to learn something, it's all out there. And when you share what you learned, other people will get to learn from you, but more, you get to share that you are learning AI skills, and that's going to be valuable for you as well in your future. So I'm going to take a little step back because we've been talking a lot about AI and it's on everyone's thoughts, but we have to prepare for a future where it's not just AI. There are going to be more and more advanced technologies coming our way. And without reading all this list, right? They're going to have a smear of AI all over them. But remember that if you think I can just prepare for AI, I can just learn AI, these other technologies are going to impact our lives as well. So I'm trying to help you prepare for not only an AI powered future, but for any change that may come along. And so if you're thinking of a job in tech or you are in, it's perhaps one of these advanced technologies is calling to you as well. It's a fact that the world is going to run on these advanced technologies. More and more, we have technology embedded in our everything that we do is technology. And so for those of us who need jobs, we have to really think about how we are going to leverage this technology and remain upskilled. It's going to be an imperative to understand the nuts and bolts of it. I'm not saying coding, but if you are working in an area of technology, to understand how it works in enough detail that to have a conversation with someone. Of course, right? Again, this is an excerpt from a World Economic Forum report, and it's very robust, and they had lots of sources there. So I don't want to bore you with statistics, but I do think it's important to present a balanced view of what companies expect, what kind of jobs they expect to be created. So this is the share of organizations surveyed that expect each technology to create or displace jobs, ordered by the job creation net effect. So in the blue, we see like a huge increase in big data analytics. The purple bar is ones that are going to be going away. Still a huge net effect. Climate change mitigation, environmental management. This is just a tiny snippet of the tens and tens and tens of jobs that were listed here. So all these jobs are going to see increases over the next few years. Again, so you even see health and care technologies here. And of course, cybersecurity. So some of these are going to be really big. Those are areas that you might want to consider if you are looking to upskill and remain relevant. You can leverage your current domain knowledge and what you already know to create a special niche knowledge, like how VR could be used in climate change or AI and cybersecurity or whatever area that you're interested in. Because when you do that, it's your unique combination of skills that's going to have you be on the forefront and have your little niche. And that is actually what's going to help you remain employed. And it's going to be your superpower because few are going to have the skills that you do. And of course, everybody's experience in history is unique. So this is actually a tough one for generalists like me because my domain knowledge was Agile. I didn't have any like huge cybersecurity or healthcare or whatever knowledge. But my new domain knowledge is generative AI, but I can't stop there, right? I know I need to niche down further. And so this is one thing that I am also keeping aware of as myself. I'm only still learning, but I have to continue to keep looking ahead and just be prepared for a future that's only going to be more and more change. Because of the rapid change, and I'm sure this is nothing new to you, you're going to have to invest in lifelong learning. Every day, learn something. That means to avoid career debt, you're going to have to make space to learn in your day and your week. what I call you a career aegis, and aegis is a kind of shield. So when you engage in this deep lifelong learning, you're always going to be prepared. You're going to find yourself always employable. Having those skills is going to be important because there are platforms now where employers are actually leveraging. So you input your skills and you will be selected for projects based on your skill set. So if you don't have the skills, you won't be selected for a project. Furthermore, half of the US population is going to be freelancing by 2027. That doesn't mean that we won't have full-time jobs also. That could be on top of what you do. People are doing that for many different reasons, right? Diversification and older workers want to keep working. So these skills-based assessments and these gig platforms are going to become big in hiring, in jobs. You will have to be thinking of how you upskill yourself, continually upskilling yourself. Not only when you're hired, right, but when you're employed as well. So you get those projects. So this is the skill is what employers say they want and need. So there's good news. Employers say they want and need some of these skills that you already have. However, take a look at number one, analytical thinking. That is because I thought I had a lot of analytical thinking up until I actually took a course with analytical thinking and realized there's a whole area of business statistics and data analytics that I had missed out on. So that's one thing I definitely recommend folks upskill on. And number six, of course, technological literacy. I can't have this talk be, being prepared in an AI powered world and one with lots of technology coming and miss out. If you aren't technologically literate, you're going to miss out on a lot of other jobs. And I do want to point out that this is the employer perspective of what they think you need, but it's not actually holistic at all. And so before we end this talk, I'm going to cover this holistic picture of what you need to thrive in an uncertain world. You have already a lot of skills that remain relevant for jobs, ones that you have been using for years, and it's going to become even more important and more crucial as we get time sliced, time management. AI can't replace your communication skills, your empathy. You still need to collaborate with people to get stuff done. All those things are going to become more and more and more important. We will always need a human in the loop. So if it hadn't crossed your mind yet, and this is nothing new to us Agilists, we are living in an age of extreme change and uncertainty. So I told my story of how my world was never stable, and I saw the world changing around me frequently, and that's only going to escalate. So some of you are very experienced helping companies thrive amidst change, but don't know how to do this yourselves. This is what people have been telling me over the past year, and they are trying to find a new market fit for their roles. So now you know why I wanted to share my message of how to thrive in an uncertain world, which of course of those, like I said, who are working age means the major impact is going to be on the jobs that we can get. How do we survive? How do we thrive? So here's my message in a nutshell. We have to disrupt ourselves continually. So I have created 6 skills to help you continually disrupt yourself so you can always thrive no matter what comes your way. And they have served me well over the past 30 years, have enabled me to evolve my career, see what was coming and be prepared for change, and also survive lots of different events in my life. So this is the 6 skills. I was able to pivot my career, and of course I told my story, but I hope that by harnessing these skills, you can position yourself to succeed in an increasingly uncertain and unpredictable future. So I'm going to go through each one by one. At the end, you can scan a QR code and go right to my website and get a little worksheet. And I'm going to tell you about each one. So ingenuity. This one is an interesting one because I was thinking through what ingenuity really means. A lot of curiosity, creativity, but you have to be proactive. Ingenuity can't be a spectator sport. You can't wait for things to happen. Explore the edges of your career. That's one thing I've been talking about. The adjacent possible, as Daniel loves to say. I was always looking out for what was next. What was different than everyone else was saying? How do I combine this in a different way? How do I take from different careers and make something my own, right? So find your niche, combine those different skill sets. So when I had the Agile meetup group that we had for 5 years, we had speakers on psychology, team dynamics, and other things that people weren't talking about years ago. So ingenuity is the first skill set. Technological literacy. We can't, again, pretend that this is not important. It's going to be super important for us. This is about your ability to adapt to those technological changes, to embed it in your decision making, into your life, enhance your problem solving skills, know how to leverage it to achieve your goals, because other people will. They're leveraging it, all day, every day. So that is how I upskilled myself, right? I'm using AI daily. I chose to take a program in data science. So whatever your direction is, you need to determine some specific goals for yourself. AI is, like, if we've just determined, is a huge, very broad field. You can't put your face, your hand everywhere. So find something specific, start learning, and then put that learning into practice by integrating it into your daily work. So the goal I actually had when I started my data science program was to lead a data science initiative, or a machine learning team, or AI initiative inside a company. But by the time I ended, I was like, no, I actually don't think I want to do that. So I had to do some more work to get where I wanted. And that's all natural. We're going to have to evolve. The third skill is intentionality. It's about your ability to pick something important and focus on it. So again, I touched on this a little bit. I had to say no to a lot of things when I picked up my data science program. I had to say no to learning anything else. I had to say no to, at that time, I decided I'm not going to get a full-time job at all. I'm just literally going to focus on that. When you understand what you should be focusing on for yourself in your career and your goals, that's going to be powerful. So the analogy I use is, if you have 10 books you're trying to read and you read 5 pages from each book every night, it will take you many years to finish a book. So focus on one thing, find that niche. So when you get really clear about what you do want to finish, things will start happening. Again, this is not new for any Agilists, right? So now I have to focus on, what will it take to move my business forward? So the fourth skill is resilience. This is about your emotional resilience and stress management skills, and proactivity about your mental and physical health. Constant change is very, very hard for humans in general. And this is one thing that really will help you along the way. So I read tons and tons of books over the past, 5-7 years. And although I lost everything twice, I had someone run away with my business, I had to figure out, how am I going to be happy in that moment? Those books all said the same thing, right? Meditate, be grateful for the small things, even electricity, fresh water, journal, exercise, stay hydrated, eat healthy, and make sure you get enough sleep. But I learned along the way that I can't control everything, and that I should just let the wave go. And I'm sharing the story really openly, because what's important is not where you are today, or even maybe where you are in the past, but the journey you're taking to continually improve your resilience to uncertainty and change, your okayness with going with the flow, instead of being frustrated or upset with the current state, because there are some things that we just can't control. The fifth skill is community. This is one thing that is so, so important. And the first time I did this talk in March, all the people who went to my former meetups, there were people there who showed up and they supported me. The primary reason that Homo sapiens survived over other species, because there were other human-like species, was our ability to band together and work as a team. So to thrive and survive in today's interconnected world, we need to be part of a community. You're here, that's great. Utilize your networks for mutual benefit and community growth. Build a self-sustaining ecosystem that involves everyone, right? Not just about you. So it's a mutual giving and gaining. And again, I'm here today because of the relationships I built over the past 8-10 years in the Agile community. And community, what they will do is drastically increase the surface area for opportunities and synergy. And so that, if you're looking for a job or looking to remain relevant, it's going to drastically improve your chances. So I have, a lot of stories about how I got involved in community, but you're here and you understand how important it is. Like, cast your net wide and support and uplift others. And the last skill is diversification. This is something I don't see a lot of people talking about, but in an era of extreme change and uncertainty, what is going to help us survive is diversification. For example, if one species of fish suddenly has a disease and dies off, there are others that will take the place so the entire ecosystem doesn't collapse. That's this way for the majority of species. But keep this in mind for yourself, right? So what can you do to diversify? Diversification of income in some way, investments, interests is going to keep you resilient through many changes. So I've had full-time jobs and contracts most of my life, but I, did things like invest in real estate. I bought a house to rent a long time ago, and I rented it out by room so that if one person left, the house would not be empty. I was reducing my risk back then because I had a mortgage. I had side gigs, consulting, speaking, and a bunch of things. And of course, my diversification strategy now is I offered lots of different kind of services. So putting your eggs in one basket is risky. I'm not saying don't have a full-time job, but if you do, your entire diversification portfolio, tangible, intangible investments, other ways you can diversify. So as a diversification, right? I touched on the side hustle. More and more Americans are relying on side hustles than ever. So if you have one or you're thinking about one, then you are mitigating risk in some way. Cool. So those are the 6 skills that have served me well, and they will serve you well. But there's one other thing I want to touch on. And that is, but first, yes, what skill resonated with you the most? Whip out your cell phones if you can. And hi, Mark. It's nice to see you driving. Slider.com 40743 or intentionality. Love it. You know, every talk I do, the results come out so differently. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right.
What's the difference between skills and character traits? I could see character traits changing a lot from talk to talk, and these might be character traits and not skills.
Oh, the skills I mentioned as these skills that when people vote on them, some audiences think tech literacy is important and other ones think resilience is most important.
Well, okay. So let's take tech literacy. Concretely, what do you mean by it's a skill?
Well, I do believe that one has to be technological literate, have the capacity to focus and understand what they want to, what does technological literacy mean for them and how they want to upskill. So it is a skill to be technologically literate.
What does literate mean?
I think everyone has to define that for themselves, because what for you might be very, very different than for me. But I guess in the end, the answer is, are you skilled enough to be able to accomplish your personal goals? And if so, then that's great for you. My massage therapist, she's not very technologically literate, but for her, I guess that's less important. So, right. So for each person, it's going to be very, very different. So I need to move on, and then I just tell you a few more slides, and then we're going to have a chance for a lot of questions. What I found for myself over the years was that these skills were great, but I still didn't feel anchored, because what was missing was my personal mission. So until I had my personal mission, I felt like, how do you even know what to focus on? Maybe to your point, Atalia, right? So my personal mission is actually at helping people with information they need to thrive in a rapidly changing world, which is why I'm here today giving this talk. I want to connect people with information. And so that's what's connected my whole career, from technical writing and research to agile transformations, and now what I'm doing now. So there's a lot that fits in there, right? And yet it's limiting. So finally, I feel like I have this, and also to say, starting a community of people who are new to AI and want to learn more. So I have a little QR code you can scan if you want that. So because we're not going to do breakout rooms, what I recommend is for you to take some kind of action. So I have this here. You can take a screenshot if it's convenient for you, but don't worry if it's not convenient for you. I have you can scan this QR code and it will take you to a page on my website. And I can also have Joe share it out afterwards. So you can contemplate for yourself, is there something and some action you want to take for yourself that will help, that you think will help you? So it's a very individual, personal exercise, and it might be that one person wants to focus on diversification because I spoke with them, and another person wants to focus on their ingenuity. So I am starting an AI learning community. So last QR code here for you, where there's a lot of time for questions. And if you want to be notified of my AI community, then please scan the QR code and enter your information. Otherwise, yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, I'll just check chat to see if there's any questions there. No, a lot of people are just adding a lot of information. Yeah, definitely want to open it up to anyone who has questions. So,
Heidi, how do you market the skills that you have listed? You know, you're going to an interview, they ask you, what skills do you have?
Sorry,
for
how
this
do I
group?
market the skills?
Yes, yes. They ask you in an interview. You know, you're going to an interview. You're supposed to have all of those technical skills. They ask you about how they ask you, well, you upskill yourself with new skills.
Mhm.
What are they and how are they useful to us? How would you go about?
Thank you for asking.
Yeah. So it's a great question. Thank you. I think for a lot of people and a lot of companies, they want to see concretely something, some project that you've done. So as an example, I have interns, and the interns came on without any knowledge of, AI assistants or AI chatbots or automation or AI general, but they have upskill, but I put them on client projects right away. So when they leave, and this is one thing I tell them, so when you leave, you're actually going to have real stories to tell about the difference you made in a business, because it's not just a theory that you have learned, which is why I focus so much on the practical aspect. So find some way, not just play around, but actually tell a story about some difference that you have made. And it could be any project that you choose, but with that story is the story that's going to resonate with the company. So I would actually tailor that to the company. So if you're looking at getting hired on in a healthcare company, you might want to look at some way that you can have a little project that would be meaningful for a healthcare company. So there's lots of ways that you can tie it directly to the job that you're looking for.
thank you, Heidi. I had a question about technological literacy.
Yeah.
So the way I looked at that, and maybe I wasn't looking at it the right way, was can you find out information that you don't know? So it's not just the information you know, but you know how to look for the information and find it. So for example, I had a knee injury and I could have went back to the doctors and got an MRI, but I decided I had a conversation with GTP4 and
Yeah.
I said, hey, I've got this knee injury and here are the symptoms. And of course, GTP4 said to me initially, well, you should go see a doctor. And I said, I know, but let's talk about it. And after about 10 prompts, we narrowed it down to the exact problem that I had. And I followed its advice and I said, what do I have to lose? I'm going to rest for a little bit and do its advice. And within 6 weeks, if it doesn't work, I'll go to the doctors. And sure enough, within 6 weeks, it worked fine. So, and I'm not a doctor, not even close
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Some people have asked, for example, how do I use AI in my Scrum team? Jeff Sutherland talked about this. Use AI to actually help you with your retrospectives. Use AI to help you with sizing stories and developing stories and refining work. And you can go into GTP4. So is technological literacy that aspect of it too, being able to find information out that you don't know using AI itself?
So it's a little bit deeper than that, though. So yes, that's a great place to start, but everybody's going to have that skill in another 6 months or year. I use that term loosely. Most people are going to have that skill. So if you want to be on the forefront of a technologically powered world and an AI powered world, you have to go a little bit deeper. So it's okay now to be on the forefront because you can do great prompts, but more than that is about asking questions that are going to be very relevant when AI is incorporated into every facet of the business. So this is why I was recommending to know how to ask the tough questions. There's a book called, I think it's called Becoming a Data Head. And that's the one I recommend everyone because it talks about if you were, for example, a product manager and had to talk to a data science team, then what are the right questions that you can ask? It really is a super insightful little book, and I recommend it. So I wouldn't stick there. It's a great start, but go even deeper so that you understand how the algorithms work if you want to remain, you're working in a company that's going to try to embed AI there.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Mark, for giving that. So the expert game, something that James and Jonathan Bach talked about. Yeah.
So expert games is ability to find in about mid-90s, technology professionals started being called experts if they can find information as opposed to know the information.
Yeah.
And that's the expert game. On the AI front and the technology front, because I'm hearing things that are prickling my ears a little bit. One thing that I wonder is should we at some point talk about specific transferable skills that Agilists give, that Agilists bring to the AI world or to the data world, because there are those specifics that we can do. There is, just for example, fairly big example, the entire programming world, not just AI, not just generative AI, but the entire programming world is switching from pricing core STEM skills to pricing natural language skills. They've been studies, happy to share real data. There've been studies on what's a predictor of somebody's coding capabilities when they have done no coding whatsoever. 10, 15 years ago, it was STEM. Now it's language. And funnily enough, if you do those studies for coding of brand new code, it's any language. However, if you do the study predicting the troubleshooting and debugging skills, it's the competency in English. Both data and AI worlds share a problem that they don't see, that Agile is really well poised to fix, and that's dealing with complexity. Some of you might remember the talk that Dan shared in a couple of different forums. Really dealing with complexity, not just psychologically, but quantitatively and qualitatively, really putting something in front of people. And second, dealing with people.
Mhm. Yeah.
A lot of AI efforts, because frankly, Agile coaches, Agile professionals will not have the technical competency to ask the right questions about AI, because the questions change, and the books that teach you those prescriptive questions, as opposed to really thinking about data, are gonna go out of date fairly quickly.
Yeah. So we have another hand up. So is there a question in that? Or was
So
that just
the handout, how does this tie to the transferable skills?
Yeah. Transferable, just real quick about transferable skills. Yeah, so I find myself being a lot more successful because I actually talk to people about the problems that they want to solve instead of just pushing AI. So going to Greg's question also, and then Mark, I hear you. This relates. So are you finding that customers, employers know what they want from AI, or the conversations using some of the Agile skill set? So yes, totally. Transferable skills, understand what the customer wants. Anchor back to the customer. I have a lot of people approaching me saying, I want a chatbot. Well, what do you think it's going to do for you? I don't push a solution, and I tell them in the case, no, this is not going to help you. Focus on building your brand first, and then I can help you with a chatbot, or focus on content first. The transferable skills, they're still there. It's you have all the skills you need, and with whatever the market is asking for next. Again, this is another angle, is a lot of Agilists are moving into product management or delivery lead or product operations. There are a ton of transferable skills that can be had with the Agile skill set, even if you're not labeled with the Agilist as your role. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I wanted to expand on, kind of call our attention to something that you said earlier that expands on that last question and on your last answer. I think you said that futurists are telling us that by 2027, half of us are going to be freelancers. And suddenly, the ability to foster self-organization in teams that evolve out of the ether of all these freelancers just suddenly finding each other to solve a problem, doing something, and then going and finding another team. Yeah. We're incredibly well positioned for that and well trained for that. A caution, though, is that a lot of us have been doing our Agile coaching work in organizations that aren't particularly customer focused. Mm-hmm. And we might want to attend to getting better at that side of our work, so that when we're working with all these freelancers, we can help foster that as well. So just want to throw those two things out there.
Yes, very, very, very well said. So teams are going to be they've never been really stable for me in my career. I had all the teams I work with, there's always someone coming and going and a reorg happening here, but the ability absolutely to bring people together in teams and and the ability to help people feel cohesive, even when it's a constantly evolving team, right? Those are absolutely skills that we bring to the table. And even now more, they're going to be more, because I talked about skills and projects going on, they're probably going to be even more evolving than they ever were in the past.